Now, the DNC Unity Reform Commission, big news. The commission was formed right after the Democratic Convention.
Yes, an agreement between Senator Sanders and Secretary Clinton's campaigns.
Right.
Yeah.
To take a look at some of these issues surrounding the Democratic primary and make recommendations. So maybe the number one item, right, was superdelegates.
Yes, was the big thing. But this was pre-written into the resolution, so it's important to your listeners and viewers to know that of all the things we tackle, whether it was caucuses, primaries, transforming the Democratic Party, and superdelegates, this one was baked in, so to speak, and it is a 60% reduction of the superdelegates.
That's what you recommend. So, by the way, the process is you've made your recommendations.
We have,
and then it goes to the
Rules and Bylaws Committee. They have 6 months to take this up, but the Unity Reform Commission, especially on the Sanders side, they were what we are affectionately called the Bernie 8. We're going to be working and pushing. Our revolution is going to be pushing with other grassroots and progressive organizations that they do it sooner. So that for the fall, the March meeting, the spring meeting, we should take that up then.
At the DNC
meeting. Absolutely.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
While we're waiting for the fall, let's do it.
No, do it right now. Yeah, get it done. Everybody's been waiting for this, right?
Yes.
So let's talk. So what is your recommendation on superdelegates? How many were there and how many would there be now under this recommendation?
Well, superdelegates, there were 447. There'll be 280 unpledged superdelegates. Those are governors, former elected officials like the vice president, the president of the United States, distinguished folks across the country, and then the grassroots folks. So baked into the agreement between Senator Sanders and Secretary Clinton's was a 60% reduction all the way. So that means that 280 unpledged delegates, or superdelegates, if you will be unbound, while 447 folks will be bound for a total of a little over 700.
Bound meaning they have to vote.
They have to go with their state on the first round of voting.
Right. Got it. Okay.
For a presidential primary, and then if there's a second round of voting, they go back to being super, if you will.
Yeah.
But
right.
280 now. Out of the 700 something, only 280 will be free, and then 447 will be bound by their state on the first round of voting. That is progress. Now, some folks on the commission, like myself, wanted no superdelegates.
I was just going to say, why do you have any superdelegates at all?
But the establishment, they died. Some people still want this process. There were other folks on the commission who wanted to keep the superdelegates the way that they are. They didn't want any change. And then there were people like me who wanted them to go away totally. And
so this was a compromise.
It was a compromise. And in compromise, you never get 100% of what you want. Right. It is progress, but that doesn't mean that grassroots folks can't still push the Rules and Bylaws Committee, who are not bound by the resolution like we were, to even go further. And as you remember, Senator Tim Kaine, a couple of, maybe a month or so ago, was reported in Politico that he said, let's do away with superdelegates altogether, and he challenged his colleagues who will remain within that 280 to vote the way of their state. So superdelegates can, on their own, without the Unity Reform Commission, determine that 280 can determine that we're going to vote the way of our state.
So I just want to be sure I understand, and all of our viewers and listeners understand, because I think to me it sounds a little backwards, bound and unbound, what that means. So when you say 447 are bound,
yes,
that means they have to follow how their state voted.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
So that does away with cases like we had the last time, where I remember Massachusetts, right? Was it Massachusetts? I forget what state, but
there were several states
that went for Bernie.
Yes,
but the superdelegates, like the senators, said no, they were still going to stay with Hillary.
That's right. And then in some cases where the senator won a state, Secretary Clinton still ended up getting more of the delegates because the superdelegates tilted the scale.
Right.
And so we're trying to stop that from happening for anybody. I want folks to know that we don't know who the nominee or who will run in the future, but this is an attempt to balance the scale somewhat.
And what that does is it really respects the vote of the people of the state. Right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That, to say that people who have more titles are good. Don't get me wrong, but I say purpose is better. But really, the system says that the people who have the biggest titles know better than the average everyday person, and that's a bit elitist. So we have reduced that, and hopefully we'll continue to
So
work
the
on that.
280, when you say they are unbound, that means they're free to go against the people of their state.
Absolutely, they
Still.
sure can. Still. And that doesn't sit well with some folks, but I want people to know that the Unity Reform Commission was bound by that. Again, every other area was open for debate. That one was mandated within the resolution, as much as people like me, Representative Lucy Flores, others of us did not believe that there should be any superdelegates. We fought to try to change it, but minimally, some folks should take some comfort.
Yeah, no, this is
comfort.
That's right. No, this is real progress.
Yeah, it is progress.
It just doesn't go as far as you and I would like to see
yes.
it, and I think people continue to raise hell. But
that's right.
As one during the primary, that like you, I was advocating getting rid of the superdelegates.
Yes.
Again, the people of the state ought to have, I think,
I
the
do
last
too.
word.
And we got to take the bitter with the sweet. And again, we're saying that people, we're really saying that the grassroots doesn't know what they want. You're saying to the voter, you were wrong, and I'm going to override your will. And that's not right, whether we like it or not.
Okay. How about caucuses?
Yes.
And then we have closed primaries, too.
We do. Listen, we tried to push for open primaries. We were voted down. There were 21 members on this commission. Senator Sanders there were 8 of us, the Bernie 8. So we went in at a disadvantage from the beginning, and we argued hard, and that came, Jeff Weaver, the senator's campaign manager, really carried that, pushed it hard, but we were voted down in terms of open primaries. But it's important though that we have open primaries, because we need the Democrats in order to win. We cannot win elections with just people who identify on paper as Democrats.
It is insane to have a closed primary.
It is.
I've argued this with some of my friends as well, but what the Democratic Party, to me, has to be all about is bringing new people in. And Senator Sanders did that.
He did that. That's right.
So many independents, so many young people who had not been involved in the party before, they wanted to come in, they wanted to register, they wanted to vote.
That's right.
And unless they had been Democrats like for 59 years, right? And some of these rules,
they're locked out.
They're locked out.
And look at states like New York, for example, where you have to register almost a year to vote next year. People had to register as a Democrat this year.
I think if you are not registered now,
right, you won't be able to vote as a Democrat
next year
or a Republican next year.
It makes crazy.
It is crazy.
I told this story on air last year. My neighbor was a hardcore Bernie guy.
Yeah.
But he was registered as an independent. And so when he showed up to go vote for Bernie in the Maryland primary, couldn't vote for Bernie. You couldn't vote for Bernie.
Yeah. And that's for anybody, because we're making this about Senator Sanders and Secretary Clinton, but we're trying to open this up for future generations.
For Democrats to win.
That's right. We got to have the independent voter. We really do.
In other words, it's almost like, why campaign?
Yeah.
Why bring in new people if they can't vote?
If they can't vote, makes no sense, and
it contradicts everything the Democratic Party
but
is
the
all
argument
about.
is, and I would love your.
Damn it! I should have been there with you fighting.
I would have loved.
I'm not saying we would have won, but still.
But the argument is only Democrats, on paper, should be able to decide their nominee. That is the argument out there. But counter to that, I would argue, okay, I understand where you're coming from. I don't necessarily agree, because there are a lot of independents lean one way or the other.
And I think there are more independents today.
That's it. More registered independents in this country than Democrats or Republicans.
Right.
But how is hypocrisy? And I said this, that you're going to say to independents, you're not good enough to vote for us in the primary, but in the general, we need you. We want you. We love you.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't make sense at all. It's not right.
You've got to recognize the power is with the independents today.
That's it. It is. And especially millennials identify more as independents than any other generation.
If you talk about, and I've heard that very phrase, Nina, that you've heard. To me, the definition of elitism is to say, we only want Democrats to decide who the Democratic nominee. In other words, unless you've been a Democrat as long as I have,
right?
That's what that whole attitude is.
You don't count.
You don't count.
And then with a straight face,
so
to me, it's a form of voter suppression.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
and so we are the party that fights. I mean, there's no doubt that
instead of saying, hey, I've been a Democrat all my life, welcome.
Welcome. We
I'm
want you.
glad you're coming in,
and
right?
this is why you are important to us.
Right.
And would hope then that they would want to, sign on the dotted line, so to speak.
Yeah.
But why block them out in the primary? But I don't know. But I mean, we have a whole lot of other good stuff that happened, right?
Right.
But do we want to go down the list?
Let's do that.
Right, we got a good list.
All right, okay.
Right,
All
you
right.
and I, we got a good list. So reducing the number of unpledged delegates, we dealt with that. Electoral reforms and a process for rewarding states that have same-day voter registration.
All right, good.
And same-day you can sign on the dotted line, so to speak, to be a Democrat. We want to reward states that do that because the Democratic Party should be the champion of that. Even if you want people to sign on the dotted line,
it's up
let's
to
do it the
states,
same
but you're
day.
going to reward the states
We're going to
that
do that. Yes,
that's good.
A commitment to reevaluating the allocation formula so that primary and caucus winners receive more pledged delegates, making sure that it is not skewed. And in terms of caucuses, I love caucuses only because it brings the community together. But they are it's a heavy process. You got to stay all day. You might not be. So within our reform effort,
and Bernie did well with the caucuses, as I recall, right?
He did. But I went to Nevada. I mean, Ohio is not a caucus state. I had never been in a caucus before. It is a job. It's all day.
Yeah, I know.
But
I've covered them in Iowa. I mean, yeah.
We want
how many people
now,
have that much time?
They
to
don't
go?
have that much time. So we recommended that folks are allowed to do absentee in a caucus, which will definitely ameliorate, some of the problem and the struggle with having to stay at a caucus all day.
Yeah,
you shouldn't have to do that.
No.
But a caucus serves a two-tier process, I think. It's not only just coming there to vote for the person you want to be the Democratic nominee, but it also can be used as party building. Because the community comes together, you get a chance to talk to one another. Unlike a primary, you just go in and vote and you leave. But in caucuses, I think it's communal. But we are going to try to ameliorate some of the burdens associated with a caucus.
Okay.